chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina Speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Good evening and welcome one and all. It's good to be back with you on this fabulous Thursday. Yes, as we head into the weekend, I always say this is the eve of Friday, which it is technically, but it's good to be back with you this evening for another episode of Sabrina Speaks, and saying a big hello and huge shout outs to all of my supporters and friends and family over there in Australia. And definitely those in the UK who are dedicated listeners, even if it's after the fact, and definite contributors as well. So near and far, welcome one and all to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. I'm your host, Sabrina, and we're back. We're back, putting the spotlight and definitely breaking down the issues that shape our islands here on this platform, are not only our islands, but our identity and definitely our future. And in this episode of Sabrina Speaks, what I want to get into and pretty much revisit something that I covered between Thursday and Friday of last week, and also that I broke down that the bill. But I want to be taking a revisit. And I'm hearing the conversations more and more you look into it, you're seeing the obvious. And I wanted to take it from a perspective where it's calm, it's clear, but definitely educational, something for you to think about. And that's looked at right now, one of the most talked about subjects right now, and immigration. We're going back to immigration again this evening. And that is the most recent amendment bill that is right now in circulation, out for public consultation. We as Caymanians have been calling for immigration reform for a long time, okay? We've heard the concerns, and obviously the pathway to Caymanian status, it is being said, it's now proven, is just a bit too easy, it's too open, it's too vulnerable to misuse. And what we're seeing now is that this administration has responded with another amendment that aims to try and fix past errors, trying to validate decisions and bring clarity to who is Caymanian as of right. But here's the question we're exploring today. Will this, and does this bill actually address the core problems Caymanians have been raising? Or does it fix one issue while quietly leaving a bigger opening untouched? Think about that for a minute, because the content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and or participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional, legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936 is the number to call to be a part of the conversation. And you're feel free to share with me your comments, share your concerns, your questions as well on whatever social media platform that you're streaming us live from here on cmrtv.com. Now, Sabrina Speaks is brought to you every Monday to Friday from 5 until 7. And thank you to all of our new followers and subscribers. But still, remember to share the link and tell a friend that we're live and we're keeping it real, elevating talk as we continue to grow in this space and build civic education here in the Cayman Islands. Before going into the substantive topic today, you know how we do it. I like to keep it real because I love your feedback. And thanks and compliments of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. The synopsis calls for a low-level ridge that continues to dominate the weather across the islands with mainly stable conditions. Now, moderate onshore winds can generate brisk, localized early morning showers were expected, and satellite imagery continues to show patches of fair weather clouds across the Cayman area. Tonight, the forecast calls for fair skies at first, then cloudy patches after midnight, and a 20% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall near the mid to low 70s, and winds will be easterly, 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. Now, tomorrow's forecast is calling for partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of morning showers. Temperatures will rise to the mid 80s, and winds will be east to southeast, 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. There'll be a high tide this evening at 6:11, and there'll be a low tide tomorrow morning at 12:48. The sun will set this evening at 6:28 and sunrise tomorrow morning at 6:46. Now, the outlook calls for lingering moisture from a low-level trough over the central Caribbean to drift across the Western Caribbean, allowing for occasional showers from overnight Friday into Saturday afternoon. So there you have it. That is our weather forecast for this evening into tonight, and pretty much gives you an idea of what we're heading to into the weekend. Now, let's take and turn our attention to the stories that are making waves here at home and around the world. And pretty much we're taking it from government halls to the hearts of our communities. So let's go with it. Premier Andre Ebanks is back on island, and that's following high-level meetings in St. Kitts, saying the caucus has returned with great ideas to strengthen government's performance. Now, the premier also met with the United States Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, with discussions centered on regional stability and economic cooperation. In other local news, we have police that have arrested a 23-year-old Subaru driver following a crash at the Chrissy Tomlinson roundabout on early Tuesday morning. Now, no serious injuries were reported, but investigations continues. And the Economics and Statistics Office has begun its 2026 Consumer Price Index survey of housing rentals. ESO staff are now visiting residents across the Cayman Islands who live in rental properties to collect updated information on rental cost. Now, this data plays a critical role in calculating the country's inflation rate and understanding changes in the cost of living. The survey will be conducted quarterly throughout the year in February, May, August, and November, and all information provided is kept strictly confidential under the Statistics Act. Now, with more than half of Cayman's household living in rented homes, the ESO is encouraging full participation to ensure accurate national statistics. And in other Cayman news, the Cayman Islands reinsurance industry has crossed a major milestone, with total assets now exceeding $100 billion. According to new statistics from the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, assets in the sector climbed to just over $101 billion at the end of 2025, and more than threefold increase in 5 years. Now, the number of reinsurance companies operating in the Cayman Islands has also doubled, raising from 58 in 2020 to 113 in 2025. Premiums have grown sharply as well, reaching $30.2 billion. Cayman Finance says that the figures highlights the jurisdiction rapid emergencies as emergence as global reinsurance hub, driven strong demand in the life and annuity market and confidence in Cayman's regulatory framework. In more local news, the Mosquito Research and Control Unit will begin area larviciding in several areas across Grand Cayman. So residents may see the MRCU aircraft flying low and make it repeating passes over the airport, Breakers, Caymana Bay, and Old Prospect Point, including Salt Creek. And those low altitude flights are planned and necessary to treat standing water where mosquito larvae develops. Larviciding happens during the day and targets mosquitoes before they become adults, helping to reduce future mosquito numbers. Now, no action is needed from the public, and the flight schedules may change depend on wind and rainfall. MRCU want to thank the community for its continued support as they work to keep the Cayman Islands comfortable and definitely healthy. Get ready to lace up, Cayman, because the DG 5K is back this March across all 3 islands. So whether you're running, walking, or just cheering from the sidelines, this event is all about coming together for a healthier, more connected community. So join them in Cayman Brac on March 8th, Little Cayman on the 15th, and Grand Cayman right here on the 29th. Now, registration is just $25 for adults and $10 for kids under 18. Sign up now and definitely get the move on. Connie, I wonder if you're a sideline girl. I'm a sideline girl. I part of the cheerleading squad. Now let's turn our attention to some of the news that is capturing our attention regionally. We see regional security took a spotlight at the CARICOM meeting as leaders met with the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Now, discussions focused on the growing crisis in Cuba, with CARICOM expressing concerns about the humanitarian situation and the potential impact on migration and regional stability. Rubio outlined Washington's plans to strengthen security cooperations across the Caribbean, including tighter coordination on border-controlled and transnational crime. CARICOM leaders also raised questions about recent U.S. actions in the region, seeking clarity on long-term strategy and implications for Caribbean states. Security officials say that talks mark one of the most significant U.S. CARICOM engagements in years, with both sides acknowledging the urgency of the challenges ahead. And in the U.S., a congressman is warning that Jamaica could face consequences following Prime Minister Andrew Holness' recent comments expressing solidarity with Cuba. Congressman Carlos Jimenez sharply criticized Holness on social media, accusing Jamaica's government of covering up for what he called Cuba's failing dictatorship. His remarks came after Holness highlighted Cuba's economic and humanitarian crisis during the CARICOM heads of government meeting and urged constructive dialogue between Cuba and the United States. Jimenez said that Castro's regime has interfered in Jamaica's politics in the past and warned that Holness' position could carry diplomatic repercussions, though he did not specify what those consequences might be. The Jamaican government has yet to issue a formal response. That concludes this evening's Sabrina Speaks news headlines and spotlights from right here, definitely in the region and internationally as well. And I want to thank you all for joining us. Happy birthday to everyone who is out there celebrating a birthday or anniversary today. If you're just celebrating life, kudos to you. We celebrate it with you here on Sabrina Speaks. And definitely Marshall is in the house. How are you? How are you? Yes. Parch. So Damien, how are you? Good to have you here as well. Jimbo is in the house. Yes. And you are more than welcome, Connie is saying. But it's good to be here. Good to be here with you as we get in. The phone lines are open, will be open as I get into today's discussion and just give you a pitch on exactly what I'm trying to highlight and to bring you some something that crossed my mind and whether or not our leaders or policymakers are aware as the implications. But before I go into that and share this with you, please allow me this moment to help me put a spotlight on and shine on someone who represents the very best of one of the very best of Cayman's work ethics, customer service, and community spirit as well in her own way. I want the Sabrina Speaks family to join me in acknowledging and celebrating with me Elsie Mae Miles. Yes, who is celebrating an incredible 35 years with Kirk Freeport. Yes, for more than 3 days, Elsie Mae has been a steady, trusted presence at the perfume store in Bayshore. And she's serving right now as the manager of that location and setting the standards for professionalism, warmth, and definitely excellence. Now, we've noticed that her leadership hasn't just shaped the store. She has shaped the experience of countless customers as well, and colleagues and young Caymanians also entering the workforce. Now, with this 35-year milestone, yes, it is rare. 35 years in retail with grace, consistency, and a smile is extraordinary. But oh God, she's sharp sometime, This milestone definitely shows and it marks her dedication, her honesty, her loyalty, her commitment to doing things well, and her high standards when it comes to work ethics. Now, it's the kind of legacy, honestly, that strengthens a company inside and out, and definitely community impacts as well. So Elsie Mae just isn't an employee. She's a part of the fabric of that line of work in customer service and that culture. So she has mentored staff. She has welcomed visitors and even represented Caymanian hospitality at its finest. So as I said, her work ethics is a remembrance that the excellent doesn't just happen overnight. It's built day by day and year by year. So please join me in sharing the love and sharing with Kirk Freeport and congratulating Elsie Mae, thanking her for her 35 years of service and leadership in heart. And, your contribution, Elsie Mae, is felt far beyond the walls of the perfume store at Kirk Freeport. It's felt across the community. So stories like this, I like to have the good moment, and it's a little, I can take jab at these type of stories, and especially this particular one, because it reminds us, one, that behind every business, there are people who show up, who stay committed, and makes Cayman proud. And for her, because she's my aunt, that's why I'm doing this. Congratulations from all of us here on Sabrina Speaks on this huge milestones for you, Elsie Mae. Yep. So let's see what we're going to have to put up with her a little later. I guess she'll make her demands. You think Kirk Freeport is the only one? She's definitely going to hold it over our heads as well as a family. But welcome, one and all. Yes. It's good to be here with you. Live happy. Good. Hi. See you in the house. Marshall says to Elsie Mae, yes, I agree. That mouth could be sharp at times, but congrats, Elsie Mae. I think it's a family thing. OMG, but she got it bad. See, the love is being shared right here, Elsie. Good for you. 345-936-8255 if you want to join in on the conversation. But let's get straight into it, because I think it's very important. I know it's important for me to share this with you. And I want to get some of these. I want to get these up here for you. I think it's important for me to revisit this bill. Yeah, I got it. So you can follow along with me. And why this 2026 bill is important and what it's trying to achieve is that I think we need to look into one particular section. There are other areas as well that I can highlight. But they say it's public consultation. So that's what we're doing, right? we are giving our feedback and we're going through it line by line. And if needs be, we have to pretty much come back to it again based on the exchange from here. We are more than happy to do that as well. But your feedback is critical to this, right? But this amendment bill now, yeah, you got to know us. You got to know us, Marshall. You got to know us for true. But thank you so much for sharing the love. The 2026 bill is an important piece because what it's trying to do, and people who say another amendment, and I'm watching the comments, not here in general, because everywhere is taking this, is reporting on it. It brings an area of the law that were inconsistent, if I could call it that. And it validates, or what it's trying to do, it validates past decisions so that families aren't left in limbo somewhat. Some of them feel like they're ghosts, they doesn't exist. And what it's doing is actually trying to clarify who's Caymanian by way of a definition, giving specific timelines and so forth. But please bear in mind, we still haven't seen the regulations for the 2025 one, and we don't even know what the draft regulations for this would look like if it was to come to pass. And what this particular section that I will showcase or highlight on in this first segment is the whole meaning of automatically being automatically defined as Caymanian, as of right. And what that means automatically by operation of the law, not by application, but by discretion and not by favor. And this is good. I feel it is necessary and it is responsible governance. But Caymanians didn't ask for reform because of administrative errors. They asked, from what I'm getting and some of the feedback that I'm reading, they're asked for reforms because of the pathway to Caymanian status. It felt too open, too easy. Anybody can come and get it, and too disconnected from Caymanian life. And then there were some who were children of the soil that pretty much felt like they have to go through hoops and hurdles. So that brings us to the heart of why I brought this back up today. Because the core issue of this bill want to close one door, but one particular section leaves another wide open. And until it's in the public's domain, and us seeing exactly better language or some form of a draft for the regulation that clearly outlines more of the requirements, then it's left for interpretation for what's in the public's domain. And what I'm talking about is actually Section 27 of this bill that I am posting here. And that pretty much is the whole definition of persons being born here after a period of time. I'm hoping this is the one. But I will go through that with you in this segment so that we don't get lost. Those are the fees. I have to find it. But let me break it down because I've already been through this with you, but I want you to follow me on this one. Caymanian as of right, really, is meant to clarify who is Caymanian today. But it does not address how Caymanians' status can be passed on tomorrow. Okay? And that is a huge loophole. That's where a loophole sits. And what we're seeing under the current structure is that a person who becomes Caymanian as of right can pass that status to a civil partner, to a spouse, to a civil partner's child, to their own child, and in some cases, possibly parents can also benefit from it as well. But none of these individuals are required to have lived here in Cayman or even attend school here or have any cultural ties. There may be a bunch of people who actually fall into one of these categories. And that is not speculated. That's how the law is structured. So let's say a person becomes Caymanian as of right under this clarified section. A person enters a union with someone who has never lived here in Cayman. They themselves have never lived here. There could have been someone passing through or someone who was here on a short-term work permit, whatever, and they were born here, whatever, left outside of renewing their travel document from where they're living now and the place of birth being declared on it saying Cayman Islands. They have absolutely no connection. I'm just using this as an example. Let's say the civil partner has a child from a previous relationship as well, because we're looking at that in general. And later the civil partner may qualify as well. So now we have multiple individuals across multiple generations who could possibly become Caymanian without ever living here, without ever attending school here, without ever contributing one iota to Cayman society. And also not having any cultural generalization connection to our jurisdiction. And my friends, that's a loophole that needs to be looked at in this section 27. Because what it does is that we're fixing a particular section with technical errors, but it doesn't tighten the pathway of those individuals who are saying they were born here on the 26th of March, 1977. Just being born here, you're automatic, example. But they knew the process. They hadn't gone to school. Let's say nothing like that never happened. And they're now hearing, wow, the Cayman Islands. Oh, I was born here. I was born there. But remember, my parents didn't stay and we left. I don't know. I've never been back, but I've heard it's beautiful. Hold up. But I was born on or around the 26th of March, 1977. Hold on, little Johnny, Jane, hold on. We may be going to the Cayman Islands. I'm automatically Caymanian. I just need to show up with my birth certificate, which you're entitled to, saying that you were born here in the Cayman Islands on the 26th of March, 1977 or after, and you're automatically Caymanian. Remember now, parents they left shortly after your birth. Maybe you were 1 or 2, maybe, I don't know. Just for example. With this, if it's passed as presented for those people that I've just described, right now they become automatic. It does not make clear whether or not it will be able to block their spouse, child, children, stepchildren in being able to also apply for that Caymanian lineage. So until the verbiage is in the draft bill or further explanation is given, you are actually solving a problem for one set of people who felt disenfranchised. But where does it end? Now, let's be fair. Let's address that problem. If it is a case where the individual was born here, keeping it in line, and let's say attended school, remember back in 1977, you only had to be 5 years old to start school. They started school, they went straight through. 15, 16, parents decided they were going to leave. That's a different thing. That person is here, right? you can say that that person was a part of it. But if that person never went to school here, nothing, and they're just hearing about it now and come back, there is nothing that says under this bill that is being presented that they can't pass that automatic declaration that they're now Caymanian onto their child or children who, in actual fact, would have no direct lineage to this country. But they, the child that was born here, is Caymanian. Let that sink in. That's one particular section of those clauses that I'm only drawing reference to. Now, when this whole exercise came about, it was thought about that pretty much the numbers would be small based on the data that is there. There's only, let's say, 80 people, maybe 100 people. I don't know what the data shows. Who would be automatic? And that is anyone that was born here on the 26th of March, 1977. How that would work. Now, there's one thing of giving that child Caymanian status. But do you think, Cayman, it would be fair for them to be able to pass that on generations to generations to generations to generations just because you were trying to fix an error? Is that the type of immigration reform when we were asking for reform? When we were asking for reform to deal with the ghost Caymanians that we were asking for? Is that what we were looking for? That is something that needs to be looked into. And like I said, I'm only presenting what is in the public's domain. It's different if that person was born here during that time, they have remained with us, or they can show where they, at least for the first 10, 15 years of their life, was here because they would have still been a minor under the age of 18, and they don't decide where their parents, because remember, none of the parents would have been deemed Caymanian. So they were more than likely on work permits, government contracts, but they left. You understand? So at the end of the day, if you're trying to deal with the child that was born here, no fault of the child. We have no control over where our parents decide to have us. But in this particular case, to close that door, do we stop the status at that correction? Because if we don't stop the status at that correction in dealing with that individual, their children, their spouse, their stepchildren could be entitled to grant thereof of the right to be Caymanian. And this is why I'm saying clarity, context, data is needed, because you're dealing with one thing, but there's a bigger issue at hand. I am not fear-mongering. It is a sincere question that I know what they're trying to do, but without a working document, when you're presenting a bill, these are some of the answers that should be presented, because it is an obvious trickle-down effect that you're really not closing the door. You're really not doing that. Let's lock this down now. Bearing in mind, there's another section that if you were born after a certain date in 2004, that as long as you can prove that one parent was domiciled in the islands, that person is automatic as well. Remember that one? Where let's say there's a child that was born by two persons, and let's say they weren't married, or for whatever reason, the child has left at a young age. And let's use the case of the mother taking the child, raised the child in another country. The child is now 21, 22, 23, maybe 25. and can prove that their father is a Caymanian, even though they weren't married, they can prove that they're Caymanian and they were born after that time, they're covered as well. Can you imagine that individual having that right now, never lived here, but have probably made a life of their own, is married, have children of their own, and now coming, and all of those kids are entitled, and their partners are entitled to the same rights. You see why I'm asking the question. And without those type of questions or answers, F and Qs that they put on these things, these are some of the real scenarios that can have long impacts on what we call generational Caymanian. Because can you honestly say that that individual in the first tranche of people who were born here on the 26th of March, 1977, to two non-nationals who were just here on work permits, non-Caymanian nationals, are on contracts, that they're now, because of this, being able to be considered Caymanian, automatic? Would you call their offspring in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s generational because we were trying to correct a wrong? What would you call them? It would be interesting. I have a question on WhatsApp. During the last campaign, numerous political leaders emphasized the urgent need for a status freeze. Since then, there has been no mention. Given the current unemployment rates amongst Caymanians and the fact that our own local workforce is now suitably qualified for many roles currently held with permanent residents and a status freeze, a policy that citizens should actively champion. Furthermore, how can the continued granting of permanent residency, PR, be justified when it potentially displaces qualified locals and tightening the job market? Good question. Thank you for that, WhatsApp. Let's deal with the first part. Given the current employment rates, should citizens be actively championed? Furthermore, can we continue? How can we? You see the validation clause, WhatsApp writer? To avoid some serious lawsuits in this country, they have no other choice but to actually consider any pending PR applications, as you've alluded into in your WhatsApp message. This isn't a fact where you can just say, okay, that law of 2025 is passed. But remember, the first law that was passed really didn't address the point system. It was focusing their attention on sham marriages. The PR point system, because remember, it's only a first phase. There are different tranches, as was reported by the government and the minister, that there are a number of amendments that are supposed to come. So if you're saying, since the law couldn't put in effect, hypothetically, for the 1st of March, could the government, is what you're asking, have put a freeze on any further applications being able to be sought? Because let's catch up with all of those applications right now that is pending. We don't have, that I'm aware of, any public data or true numbers as to how much applications there are pending for permanent residents on the grounds of 8 years residence, how much may be there as spouse of PR holders, how much are there for status on the grounds of descent? Well, forget the status, okay? But no, you know what? They have to be counted. You have to count all of these status that are through marriage, status on the grounds of naturalization, all the dependents of these children, continuation of the right to be Caymanian because they have been here. It is a plethora of applications that could actually be waiting, and that number we don't know. So to your point exactly, you are asking the question, why hasn't there been a freeze until we really see where we are? Deal with the backlog and also see exactly how much that are in process would actually be successful, because we know there's a good chance that a lot of the PR applications, or a number of the PR applications, may not necessarily meet the minimum of 110 to be approved, but they're also entitled to their immigration appeal. How long would that take to say the freeze would be? Which is why your question is sound, but they would need some serious legal advice on how to navigate that to avoid some of the pitfalls that may actually have them open to legal lawsuits. Remember, we're trying to amend legislation that people met the necessary criteria in order to submit their application. Even if you want to do a temporary freeze, what happens to the person who's eligible the end of March or the 1st of April or the 1st of June? I'm just being devil's advocate. And this is where the human rights element and our learned, legal-minded and people friends out there, they actually, I'm opening the door. It's for them to weigh in on some and all of these other implications. I am telling you that there are a lot of law firms right now that are actually just sitting, and they're going to be busy for a while if we don't handle this correctly. Because there are other pieces of legislations that is there that we have to make sure. It's not that we're scared to make change, but you can't disenfranchise persons for a law that we're trying to address now, but is indirectly illegal, almost. Some may say, oh, shut up. We just got to do it. At some point you have to, oh, we can take that approach too. But I can assure you, I heard a clipping, all the needs and the wants for the roads and the docks and the schools and the this and the that. If you think government paying out for an increased amount of lawsuits will not impact infrastructure, farming, education, payment of Sinoco, dealing with our indigents, dealing with all of that, you got another guest coming. Which is why knee-jerking way of dealing with these, the lack thereof of fluid public engagement and participation, will yield to an unfortunate demise if this is not handled properly. So the example that I gave is really to highlight an issue that we're closing one door dealing with the applicant, but the benefits of that applicant can extend to their child, their children, their partners, even stepchildren and in-laws too, if things work out. Yes, that's how far-reaching this can be if it is not looked at properly. Let me go to some of the comments here because I want to make sure we can get you. I don't miss it. Yeah. Live Happy says, like the caller was saying last night, how can one be fully Caymanian if one does not have to renounce their original birthright? It still does not make a person Caymanian because in reality you can't. You can have dual citizenship and still be a national from a jurisdiction. And like Live Happy, like I said, we can't just do that because the United Kingdom, we're a British overseas jurisdiction. Independently, the Cayman Islands, without support and constitutional change and the blessing of the United Kingdom, we cannot just say you have to renounce your citizenship. That is something, British Nationality Act, that is controlled by the United Kingdom and not the Cayman Islands. So to just expand that, it's easy to say, but first you need to have political will. You have to actually make the justification, and you have to seek the UK's blessing because we don't control that side of it, but because of the mere fact that we are a British overseas territory jurisdiction. Hey, Miss Dorothy, good to have you here with us. So all non-Caymanians will gain from this bill is just rights. How can one hold dual citizenship in Cayman? It's easy. Remember, the Status is dealt with your ability to remain, reside, and work in the Cayman Islands. The citizenship is where the travel document, a lot of people mix that up, is because we are a British overseas jurisdiction. We're not independent like, let's say, Jamaica, where they can give citizenship. And even them with their judiciary and their independence, they're still governed by UK somewhat. And that's why they're trying to get the status of being a republic. There are just certain things that the UK still has governance over in Jamaica, even though they're independent. So we are still a full-fledged British overseas territorial jurisdiction. So we don't just give citizenship in that manner. Andrew, good to have you in the house. How you doing? Hope you're having a good Thursday. Tartarian, how are you? Going to school is not relevant. Studying overseas should have no link to a person acquiring citizenship of that country. No, Tartarian, what I was saying is that if the person can show that they went to school, let's say for the first 9 years of their life, we know that they would have been here at birth. From birth to 5 is 5 years. An additional, 10 years? They would be 15. Even before the law change in 2003, 2004, one could have applied for Caymanian status just by living here for 10 years. Hence, I'm saying be fair. So that going to school is not college or university. It would be in the islands. It would be at least 10 years of going to school in the jurisdiction. So you're counting it from birth to at least 10 years of being here. So the legal threshold of legal non-adult resident technically would have been met in order for them to pass it on, is what I'm alluding to, Tartarian. Jim says, the actual generational Caymanians better think long, deep, and hard before they become non-existent in the big scheme of things. Well, based on the stats that we're doing right now, Jim, there's no way we can, in the short term, try to do that unless there's a lot of births and people can't afford it right now. That's just the real truth. The cost of living and encouraging your people to have more births, it's just unsustainable right now because people are weighing in. And you got to look at this generation to find out whether or not a lot of them are even interested in having children. That's a bigger conversation that we need to get the youth to weigh in on that as well. Many a times their voices are not heard, and where they're weighing in the grander scheme of things and how they look at life, adulthood, family in the future. So it is quite interesting, Jimbo. Denver, unless I'm totally wrong, I thought the law used to be in order to be a legitimate generational Caymanian. One of her parents had to be generational Caymanians to be a legitimate. The law. There was a part in it that once upon a time that using that right, that lingo of legitimate, that the law did say that you had to be legitimate. And a parent born in the islands, Denver, I think is where you're going. And there is a part in it that says that. But there's also a part in this bill that says, as long as you were born here on the 26th of March, 1977. Yeah. Those persons on or around that time. And then there's another caveat for those being born in 2004. That is the one that I'm a little concerned about because they're trying to close a door and correct a number of wrongs, but it is unclear with the bill that it can or cannot be passed on, Denver. That's the problem. And even that is a delicate dance because then right to family life, we're giving it to them. And now we're going to say, well, it stops at me, but I can't have my child or children. You see what I'm saying? So some serious consultation needs to be done. Some serious looking in it from the legal standpoint of things too, as well. But your questions, your comments actually matter in shaping where we go with this and how far it will go. I don't want to seem as though I'm just getting at it. These are questions that come out of public discussions, right? But without proper context on how you will deal with an example like that, You're left to assume until you see the immigration regulations. And we've already established that the regulations for any substantive piece of law comes after the law is passed. How you put it into motion, how you operate it, it comes after the fact. So if you have a wording in a bill that says, oh, you born here on this date, you Caymanian. And that's all it says. It leaves you to wonder, well, can I pass it on? Will my husband be entitled? Will my grandchildren be entitled? Will my cousin be entitled? Yeah, those are the questions. And that is why I thought it was necessary for me to just highlight that the missing safeguard is not clear in the language that we're seeing. Okay? Because unrestricted generational transmission of this Caymanian status is not giving us what we asked for or the people asked for. Would you really say that that has been the mandate then of what people asked for? Beautiful Isles, it's amazing how people will do anything to be Caymanian status holder. Why? And look around us. They don't even embrace the culture. They free Cayman is free for all. Yeah. But you know what I like about this? Beautiful lies and ugly truth is that we now have an opportunity to make your voices heard. And maybe that what the example that I'm giving right now did not even keen in the peripheries of being able to pass it on because they're just so, let me just deal with the ghost Caymanians. Not realizing spaces like this, news is global, that there are child or persons, adults out there who would actually possibly check in here and see now, or they fall within those dates, and they have every right to apply. There's nothing going to stop them from that. Nothing is going to stop them from that. Isn't or wasn't there a law stating that non-Caymanian pregnant mothers had to leave Cayman before the child was born, if not married to a Caymanian? I'm not aware of that, but a story was shared with me earlier this morning, and to be honest with you, it brought back some memories. Back in the early days, we had persons coming to Cayman, nationalities coming to Cayman to just give birth. Yes, they frequented our islands, they did business, they came and they did what they had to do. They saw exactly what the lifestyle was in the early days here at Cayman, what the possibilities were, and they chose to have their children here. And they didn't mind that the children weren't living here because they themselves, one particular nationality, kept going back and coming forward. But where does that leave those children right now if there were a number of kids that were born during that time? And that's the big question to ask. Like I said, I'm quite sure there is data because every child being born in this country, and at the time that we're trying to cover, the only hospital, unless you were born at home, would have been the Georgetown Hospital, now the HSA, right? And it shouldn't be hard under the birth registrations, the registry, to see exactly what numbers we're actually dealing with as a part of the exercise. I'm just putting it out there. I'm really just putting it out there. But to answer that question, I'm not aware of anything like that being a reality, to be honest with you. Alfred Real, good evening, Auntie Sabrina. Late to class today. If someone was born in Cayman in 1976 and left as an infant and has lived abroad for decades, but is now recognized as Caymanian as of right under this bill, does that recognition create a status cascade where their children and eventually grandchildren who may also have minimal lived ties to Cayman gain easier pathways to Caymanian status over time? Yes. The simple answer to that is yes, because there is no more wording to say otherwise, Alfred Real. The simple answer is yes. Until our leaders say otherwise, until we see the regulations, the answer based on this bill would appear to be yes. I stand to be corrected. Alfred Real also said, and if so, has the long-term downstream impact on what we societally call generational Caymanian being, yes, yes, yes. That term generational Caymanian would actually fade away. And I feel, to be honest, that it's being diluted anyhow to a certain degree, because even when the statistics right now that are being called out at the percentage of Caymanians that we now have in our ESO data, they're not actually stripping away the generational. They're including in those status grants. So to be honest with you, I think it's going to be something that you're really going to have to depend on a lot of our older seniors to really keep connected and ask the real question. Would it matter to my child, children, or grandchildren, the word generational? Would it really matter? Hence, we have to welcome the younger minds, the future of tomorrow to the table when it's having this discussion. And I feel it is very important that the young people weigh in on this and exactly how they feel about it as well, because the future is theirs. They're going to be living with this, whether or not we get this amendment at this time right. We're living the products and the decision of the 1977. We're living of the 1984 Caymanian Protection Act and talking about doing this reform now in 2026. You understand? So I feel that in 2026, as vocal, as involved, as engaging as our youths, parliamentarians, all of those groups that are out there that are actually galvanizing themselves and are in tune, their voice matters. And I'm hoping and praying that there will be a platform that they feel open on, that is shared, and you're not judging them, but their voice is protected, that will actually be born somewhere, because they are tomorrow. But Alfred, it is being diluted, don't care how you look at it. Andrew Campbell, you are 100% correct. The right to be Caymanian is one that, if not constructed carefully, it would place serious effect on our society. And I don't think that it's not easy. Andrew, it is not easy. It's very emotive. And I feel that is why it has gotten so much attention, because we continue to evolve. And every time you go down this, there's another thing. You're going to disenfranchise that one or that family or this one or that one. You just need to stop and just put a stop to it at some point. Otherwise, it will be continuously going. And then it's a farce. It's smoke and mirrors. It's not going to do what you're saying it is supposed to do or what your people are asking for in the long run. Dean says, all those people with dual citizenship will be retired in their own mother country. And you have Caymanians as well who have chosen as well, and they're considering moving to other jurisdictions based on what they're seeing. I have heard a number of our own Caymanians, generational Caymanians, who are saying at the rate in which things are going, they are actually looking at other jurisdictions. The cost of healthcare, the cost of insurance, the just cost of retiring in their own country. It's not looking good. This is unprovoked, unsolicited. It is just general, real conversations right now that are being had right now. And a lot around tables. Nobody's going to say it's an easy fix. And you can't just say, okay, this is what we're going to do and we're going to get it done now. There are implications. There are implications without you looking at it in its totality. But I agree, we have to start from somewhere, no matter what. Tartarian, if they got money for lawsuits, why they don't use the money to build a life back home? To go to the extent of lawsuits, are these people the people we want here, people who sue our government? But Tartarian, if they have a pending application in now that met all the requirements and we decided mid-flight to change the law, don't you think they have a right to say that they were disenfranchised? I'm just saying. I'm asking the question. If you applied for a job, Tartarian, and while your application is being in, you notice that they have changed the bar, the requirements, the eligibility, before you even got an opportunity for an interview, would you feel that that would be fair to you because you would have felt that you met all of the requirements when you submitted and applied for the position, but while you were waiting to be interviewed, the rules of the game change that probably would have lessened your opportunities to even be shortlisted? Do you think that that would be fair? It is the same concept and the example that I'm using here right now. Whether or not they decide to sue, it is a matter of principle, is what this law is trying to do, because they have the right to do it. It doesn't make the person a bad person. That's in their right. And I'm sure if you put yourself in the position, in the example that I gave for applying for a job, that you would probably look at it a little different as well. There would be some unfairness to you as well. Hey, Mr. Fullerton, how are you this evening? Good to have you with us. The law is the mother and the regulations is the child. Correct. They're the operational side of things. Damian Henry, Caymanian, as it is an immigration status, not a nationality. And the risk of ghost Caymanians. What about those born here but lacking proper documentation or clearance? Well, the onus would be, Damian, on the individual to provide legal, certified documentation that links that lineage in order for them to be qualified for a decision. If you can't, I could say that I am family to let's say a billionaire. Okay, God, here's an example. Let's say the richest person that we know of here, I am going to declare that that's my father. If I can't prove that that is my father, how am I going to really argue to be a part of the estate, for example? The onus, the burden would be on me. Now, not knowing in full details and for full disclosure, I'm just addressing it at a high level. There may be cases where names don't align. You may require DNA. You may require sworn affidavits as well to connect the dots. There may just be no birth certificates for the parent or whatever the situation is to connect the dots. Whose responsibility is that? You see what I'm saying? Cayman cannot, if we're going to deal with immigration reform, there is no gray area. It's either black or it's white. And I feel that's where we need to get to when it comes to having the hard conversations on immigration reform. Now, there is room for consideration, but that comes within its own marginal definitions as well. But to say just wide open of feelings or emotion, laws are black or it's white. And this is why it is important when they are bills before they're made laws is that you engage, you have good PR, and you are able to show where and how you got to what made the bill. And without that explanation, you leaving rooms for speculation. And that's where attorneys have a field day because it is not made clear. Alfred Real, if the cascade is real, what specific guardrails should exist so as of right historical cases with quietly expanding Caymanian status to descendants who may never have lived here? Like I said, there are a number of the issues, number of scenarios that we could get in for that. Some of them is what I said. Consider how long the child was actually here, now the adult. And if they meet a minimum threshold of, let's say, 10 or 11 years before reaching the age of 18, maybe that's something that they could consider. And the only way of proving that is that if they were here those days, they would have went to school, right? So that is something to be considered. Hence, proof of education was an example that I gave earlier on. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Sabrina. Good evening to the listeners. I just joined you. I was doing so many other things with my ongoing court cases, but I know you're on the immigration topic. It's a broad topic, so I believe I won't be too far off if I just at least address something within that. I just want to say something about the new bill. The supplementary bill, call it a supplementary bill to the one they issued last year. First of all, you just touched on a little point there, which is got to do with why we are making so many changes. After we did that bill, 37 or 27 changes, whatever it was, it went for public consultation and town hall meetings, and then it went back to cabinet, and then they say, well, it's going to come into effect on the 1st of March, and then now they say it won't come into effect until the 1st. Well, they haven't said. I understand they have decided the date on which the bill now will come into force, but they haven't announced it yet. The problem with that is, first of all, it is looking sloppy. Okay, when you are dealing with something this important, you must ensure that you follow the processes, and if you follow all the processes and do the right consultation, don't under-consult, don't over-consult, usually this will be avoided. So first of all, the government is looking very sloppy. Apart from being sloppy, this tells you that there are too many vested interests who are trying to have things changed. I can say this from having drafted legislation in Cayman for 12 years. There are sometimes we would go to the Legislative Assembly and the bill is being debated and calls are still coming in from powerful people in the community to say, why don't you change this and change that? And the changes can be done even as you are passing the bill in Parliament, which means that even what is agreed at Cabinet very often is changed by informal consultation after, which in principle is also a problem. The other thing is that it means that the government does not know how to stress test bills. This is something I tried to advocate when I was in government, to say, well, if you are going to stress test bills, this is the way you do it. And there are certain ways in which you can do it. I don't need to get into the details with them regarding that. So that's the first general point I want to make. The second point, even the new bill touches on a number of topics. But let me touch the one about the new grandfathering in of people who are on permanent residency. When I first heard the Minister Miles, talk about it on radio and then on the program, he was too brief on it. I thought not that I thought I had misunderstood it. I just wasn't sure that I had understood him correctly. But from what was said by other people in government, and then later on, with some of what has been said in the papers, the way some papers also understand it, he seems to be saying this, that the little thing that they didn't deal with regarding grandfathering in was that people who have already applied for PR, they were already grandfathered in for purposes of like their applications will be considered in accordance with the previous law. Call it the previous law. Okay. But what he said was, but they hadn't been grandfathered in relation to status. Okay? In other words, without this further change they have made, the way it would have affected those people who had PR applications pending is that those applications will be heard under the 8-year period. But then when those same people apply for status, they would be heard under the 20-year period. So what they are now saying is that they want to grandfather those twice. They will grandfather them for the purposes of PR so that they will apply after 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will grandfather them in advance again for PR, so that they don't have to apply under the 20-year period, but under the 15-year period. Now, the first thing about that is, I find that odd to begin with, because I thought everybody had been grandfathered in
On
some
the
shape
first
or
one.
form. So
Mm-hmm.
on the first one, yeah, because in the first one, basically, they said, well, look, everybody's new period, the 20-year period and the 9-year period, is going to start when the new law comes into effect.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, everybody who is in Cayman or who will come into Cayman before this law comes into effect has already been grandfathered in anyway. And they will be applying under the 8-year rule and the 9-year rule, which means that people who come, let us imagine this comes into effect on the 1st of April.
Mm-hmm.
If you come in on the 30th of March, you can apply for PR in 2034 in March under the 8-year rule. If you come in again on the same date, you can apply in 2041 under the 15-year rule. So they have already done that. But apparently, perhaps because they thought it was unclear, they've decided now to say, oh, but now we want to grandfather in those people who've already applied for PR, but we want to grandfather them for PR as well as for status. Now, first of all, the government is free to do that as a question of policy. But what they are not doing, they are not telling people that they are doing this as a matter of policy, not because the law or any human rights principles stop them from doing otherwise. Let me tell you, in terms of the law, and there are Privy Council cases about this, in terms of the law, you could pass a law today
Mm-hmm.
to say that everybody, including those applications which have already been made, will have to be resubmitted to be considered under the new law. If you wanted to, as a matter of law, yes, you can do that, because you see, the law, okay, there is no legitimate expectation legally recognized that a law is not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't.
Yeah.
And what? Yeah, there's no legitimate expectation that the law is not going to be to change.
Mm-hmm.
For example, let me give you an example. There was a big case in Manitoba a long time ago. A lady was running a place where they sold booze, basically. And the law was passed to say you can't have more than 20 gallons of whiskey on the premises.
Mm-hmm.
She had more than 20 gallons of whiskey. It was brewed or brought there before the law came into effect. She had some 50 or 60 gallons. And then when they came to arrest her after the law came into force and she was prosecuted, she said, well, but this doesn't apply to me because I brought these, I brewed this before the law came into effect. Surely you must allow me to get rid of it. And the court said, no, this says you can't possess it. What it means is that when the law entered into effect, you should have ensured either you get rid of it or whatever, get it off your premises in one shape or form so that you can comply with the law. And now here's the real essence of that case. It said, sometimes the law is passed to deal with issues on the ground.
Right.
It is not always dealing with issues only which will happen in future. So that in this particular case, if government said, look, even the people who have applied, we are changing the law as of this date, you have to reapply. The government would have been in perfect order to be able to do that. So they shouldn't tell people that there's a legitimate expectation which is recognized in law. They should just say, we recognize that under the law we could have done this, but we have decided as a matter of policy, we have chosen to do it in this other way. When they talk about legitimate expectation, there is no legitimate expectation that the law will never change, even after you've applied it. That law, the doctrine of that legitimate expectation applies in different circumstances. I'll give you another example. There was a case, this is from my student days at the University of Ottawa in the 80s. What happened in that case was a big case where there were these companies in Canada which had mining rights for certain strategic minerals in Canada. An American company was bidding to buy these companies. And then it became a political issue under Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, not Justin, Pierre Trudeau, his father. And they said, and Mr. Green, who used to be Minister for Minerals, they said, no, we are not going to allow strategic mining rights to be vested in American companies. So while they were negotiating the agreement, they passed a law, the Canadian government passed a law, which was written in such a way that that contract now could no longer be seen through. And those American companies went to court. It went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. And the Supreme Court of Canada said, I'm sorry, you have no legitimate expectation that the law will never change. Yes, you were negotiating on the contract, but there's no legitimate expectation, and it stood. So the government in Cayman, what they should do is they should stop playing games with people. They should tell them exactly what the issue is. Now, in other words, okay, the general broader point is you have grandfathered in so many people, and you are doing less and less and less. And that statistic, which was given by Steve McField, that indigenous Caymanians are increasing at only a rate of 1.5% per year, and expatriates are increasing at the rate of 2.75% per year. That should tell you that there's a serious problem, and the government has not shown that they are adopting policies that are going to address that issue. They are adopting these little policies. In my view, they're just silly policies about, well, we want you to pay the fees and the grant fee at the same time. Now, can I address that? Because we addressed that, I think, last time when I spoke about it. I just want to drill down on two issues. I know we spoke then about the increase about the marriage fee to $2,000 and then the PR fees. We spoke also about the 20-year status issue. There are 4 issues we spoke about, but I just want to drill on the issue of the payment of PR fees. Because that one, I heard an argument which I respect a lot from one of your listeners who said, look, if you have a debt which you are not paying to the government, either a tax or something, you can't say because I've got no job, I can't pay. And that person tried to draw an analogy between that and the PR fees. And what they said, well, yeah, the same thing. You can't pay PR fees, then you know, if it's a debt like any other debt, they can send you away. Now, as much as I respect that argument, I think there are some issues that can be said about that. First of all, just to make it clear, I believe that the Cayman government is justified in demanding PR fees. I know that in other countries, they don't have permanent residency fees, but even under international human rights instruments, there's what is called a margin of appreciation. You've got an obligation to keep it, like you enter into an international arrangement, and there are certain principles you have to follow. Now, those principles will be applied in different countries, but they might be applied differently. There's what they call the modalities of application might be a little bit different. So long as you are following the principle, you've got a margin within which each country may do things differently. Look at, for example, the issue about the right to family life, right? What the European Court of Human Rights has said, look, right to family life is guaranteed by the European Convention. However, marriage as marriage is not guaranteed. So long as you give the right to family life, if you in your country you think right to family life is marriage, fine. You think in your country right to family life is just civil union, that's fine. We'll leave that to you. So by the same token, I think that if anybody was to challenge the imposition of PR fees, as much as they are very uncommon, they are very unusual, I do think that the European Court of Human Rights most likely is going to say, look, these are your own modalities of application. You have made the arguments about how you are a small minority community, minority in your own country, and so forth. I think we can allow you to do that. However, I think where the problem would be where you say, regardless of the whether you are working or not, then you must pay. That's where the problem. And let me try to say why I think that's a problem. What is the concept, first of all, of permanent residency? Why was it ever constructed as a concept in different countries? It is because when you live in a country for a work permit, maybe 2 years, 4 years, maybe 6 years, you might go back where you came from without establishing roots in the new country. But if in the new country you now you run a family, your kids are brought up there and so forth, the concept was to say, when you have stayed a certain period of time, then you must be given an amount of permanency. In some countries it's 5 years, some countries it's 10. Cayman is one of the highest ones, 8 years and now 9 years. But that's the concept. So that if you meet all the requirements and you are there and you have a wife, kids, a husband, and then at the end of it, when you fail to get a job, let us give it an actual example. Let us imagine you get PR at 8 years or 9 years, then you stay in Cayman. When you reach the 13th year, you can't get a job. When you fail to get a job, you get to the 14th year, you can't get a job. They tell you haven't paid fees for 1 year. Then they tell you what? They say, well, it doesn't matter whether you've been looking for a job or not. We're now going to let you go. After 14 years, you might have kids who are 13, 14 years old. That undermines the whole principle. Because at that point, you are now saying, well, you should go regardless of the circumstances. I don't think that is right.
But
now,
Mr.
the other thing that
on the flip side of things,
yeah,
the law is what it is, understanding that you're entitled to see it from both sides. But do you feel understanding and this is where I said discretion can be used based on the circumstances, but do you realize, having worked in the system, that if that was the reality, how much people would actually make a case to not pay the fees, still work? And then what? Who would be policing them that they can't get a job? Is what I think the caller at that time. Sir, it is black or white. That's what we were saying. The law is black or white. Yes, based on, it can be challenged, but for the purpose of this conversation and just paying the right to work fees, do you know what would happen here in this country if it was that easy? Who would be policing these persons to show that they're not working outside the terms and conditions?
Okay. To me, that's a practical problem which should not be so overbearing to a point where you now deny the essence of what PR is. Look at, for example, what they do in Western countries, right? You are entitled, if you are not working, in Cayman as well, NAU and so forth. But let me talk about a more advanced system of social assistance.
Right.
And they say, well, look, if you show that you can't work, we'll give you social assistance for a little while, and we will police you. There will be your officer there, your social assistance officer. You will check on them every 3 months. You show them the jobs you're trying to get. And they have been able in those systems to be able to say, you are not working, but we are satisfied from the investigation that we've done that you are not working out of choice or because you are an alcoholic or you're this and that and so forth. And then they would stop social assistance. Others will be policed and will be even helped to get jobs, and then they will get the jobs and then they go on. So all I'm trying to say is that there are systems that we can learn from which can police issues like that. I think that if you just say, well, whether just because there might be 2 or 3 people who might be smart, maybe working under the table, therefore you are going to punish everybody. With the same brush. Yeah, that's a problem. You see the same thing about the marriages of convenience. That is a very serious problem. I think at the moment there's need to tighten a little further maybe the powers of the marriage officers, because I was listening to Joy Bastel the other time and she was talking about what they do. like if they suspect that there is this might be a marriage of convenience, a sham marriage, they don't have any right to question the people
Correct.
at all.
And
They
that's
don't
why
have
the law needs
all
to be looked at.
Exactly. Those are things you can fairly look at and say, yes, we know some of you are getting into these marriages of convenience, and therefore we need to look at. I remember I had to deal with this thing in the BVI way back, where lawyers used to like approve certain things. We didn't deal with marriages, but we had to approve certain things. And I remember this lady coming to me and say, "Oh, you know what? These ladies who want to get married, the man is 80 years old. The woman is about 19 years old, and in fact, the man is sitting in the corner there, doesn't know what's going on. You shouldn't approve this." I said, I don't have the power to do that. All I can do is I can check that the people are legally resident. I can check that they are of lawful age and so on and so forth. And otherwise, I can't do anything. So that needs to be done. And I think the emphasis, therefore, should be to try and find ways in which you ensure that people are not remaining unemployed and for deliberate.
Okay.
Now,
I'm going
the
to ask
last
you
one.
to wrap
Last
up.
one.
Yeah, because I'm going to take another call.
Yeah.
That's coming in
Yeah.
straight.
Okay. Yeah.
Please.
I'll
So wrap it
yeah.
up.
I'll wrap up. Yeah. I'll wrap up on the paying of the this requirement that grants like grant fees for PR should be paid at the same time. Do they keep that account in an escrow account?
That goes
When
to
you pay
central
your
government.
grant fees?
The ministry would have to say that, but those fees go to central government. Only the filing
Yes,
fees
go to
actually stays with the department. Everything else goes to central government. Be it a portion of it stays within the ministry. I don't know, but the only thing that stays with the department is the actual filing fees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
In wrapping up, this amounts to almost like giving the government an interest-free loan, because they are asking you to pay something you don't actually owe yet. And then when they don't grant you a status, then they give it back to you. It is like you gave them an interest-free loan for 2 or 3 years, depending on how long it takes. I think it's kind of wrong for that. But thank you very much for that. I think there's still a lot more to discuss, but I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure. No problem.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for that caller. Let me call back this individual. Oh boy. There we go. Let me just return back this call. But yeah, thank you for your feedback that's coming in. There we go. Let me just get this caller on the line to have their opinion. But yeah, it is quite interesting where this is going to go if it isn't handled properly. And I'm really hoping that we will all become very vocal on it. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind?
Good evening, Miss Sabrina. I was just listening to Mr. Believer there, and I agree with him most days. Today was not one of them. Or let me not say I agree with him. Most days I agree with his position. Today is not his day. In respect of what he was saying, let's just take that one particular issue in isolation that I took great umbrage with. The paying of PR fees.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. If you can't pay the fee to reside in this country, you have an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
You have an alternative. This idea that the government must wait until your situation is good and kosher and above board, we can't do that. You signed up for PR under the condition knowing that there was a fee payable. Now, you might say a world over this doesn't happen, and I take his point in where he was saying to the effect that in other places PR fees are not applicable.
Mm-hmm.
But he said in cases where these things are applicable, should they lose their job or income or sick,
Mm-hmm.
there's a replacement for that income where they can apply to NAU, and that's not an option here in Cayman. What he failed to mention is in most of these countries, if not all, they pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They pay taxes. So there is a revenue. There's a revenue stream, whether it's income tax, city tax, whatever tax. There's a tax
to offset that.
exactly,
We don't
to
have that
offset
here.
these costs. And that's not here. So I'm not sure. Is he suggesting? I can tell you what I'm suggesting. If you can't afford to be here, then don't be here. It's really that simple.
Which is why I
It's
said
really
the
that
legislation is black and as white, as inhumane as it is. If you want to challenge it, then that's your right. But it is what it is, the terms and conditions.
And that's fair. And that's you absolutely have a right to challenge it. I mean, hopefully that there are grounds to challenge it. Challenging something simply because you don't like it is not grounds to challenge.
Correct.
They have to have reasonable merit, and they have to be viable. You not having a job, there are Caymanians who are unemployed as we speak. We really don't have there is no right to protest this, and there are permits being approved hand over fist down at work on a daily basis.
I had a case today where I got shared, I'm not cutting you, a lady who's been trying to get a job within government and even the basic administrative role, and she got a disheartening refusal letter, but saying that she wasn't eligible for an administrative job. And we see where they continue to feel like, I'm not worthy enough. And it goes right back to what you're saying, caller. Every day you're seeing all of these issuance of permissions, and where you have your own out here that is a small percentage of the population, as people are saying. So why can't they all be given a fair chance, especially those who are willing to work?
Precisely. But again, we are in charge of that, Sabrina. We are in charge of that. We elect these people. I don't know if PR holders being able to vote in this country yet.
No, not yet.
And we have to continue to I guess, ensure. I don't know of that being the case anywhere, but we have to continue to ensure that status quo remains. You gotta have more than a couple of dollars invested to truly be invested in this country. But again, and to further speak to the PR fee fiasco that Mr. Belika was speaking about, losing your job and can't pay PR fees or whatever, and government should have a heart. If government ran
14 years, you have children, that that's a little
yeah. What about those of us who've been here for 40 years with children and can't come ahead in our own country? What about that? What is the remedy for those people? What is the remedy for them? And he's talking about, government should give a bly or whatever. I don't know if that's what he was suggesting. I'm paraphrasing here. Right. But what I'm saying is we have there's a list produced, I think should be produced very often, in my opinion, but there was one that was produced, I'm not exactly sure when, that showed how much PR fees were outstanding. And there was no records or nothing that I recall hearing that Sabrina had left the country. So we already have people here who are benefiting from living and working in the country, small as it is, with thousands of dollars in PR fees being owed, thousands of dollars. And like you said, who is going to police, whether they're being honest about not having employment? And that's not an excuse.
That's a mammoth of a task, I tell you that, caller. That would almost,
But if the law requires you to pay the PR fee, and you find yourself in a position that you either don't have a job or can't afford it or whatever the case is, that's a you problem. It sounds harsh, but that's a you problem. Just like the amount of Caymanian who can't get gainful employment, that's a us problem.
Well, it would be almost the same, because I can remember Mr. Belika saying, well, then PR, permanent residency, is not permanent if you're constantly paying a fee. It's a glorified work permit. It's the same thing where a Caymanian can't find a job. You understand? That was what he as an idea. So what happens when your own people that are crying for this reform, saying we need more chances, give us a chance, break the glass ceilings, please allow us, especially those with the right attitude, skill set, but just for whatever reason can't find themselves with a decent job, or give them a chance. What are we going to say about them? Where do they have to go?
But there's nobody that I believe has or is willing, I don't even know if they exist, to say, no, I'm sorry, this permit for a receptionist over at Sabrina and Co. is not going to be granted, because I'm fairly sure that Sabrina's niece, who is not moving on to tertiary education, can take this job. Until things that simple start to happen, Sabrina, we're going to find ourselves in this place, right? And somebody's got to be brave enough to do it. I think I've discussed at length on this show about this immigration reform. I don't think that there is any one Caymanian that is looking on honestly and saying that we don't need reform. At least that was never my sentiment. My sentiment always was that it needed greater consultation, and we wanted to get it right.
Yeah.
Measure twice, cut once.
Yeah,
right?
you kept saying
Here,
that. You kept saying that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yet we're here at a piece of legislation that has been enacted, that has been passed, that can't be enacted, presumably because of the either anomalies or absurdities within the law, right? And this is what we were saying. I will say this on your show. I applaud Minister Miles for taking the courage to bring such an important piece of legislation, right? However, due process, proper implementation, take the time necessary. Measure twice, cut once. Cut once. Now, I mean, I think we are like the laughing stock. I have people friends calling from all around the world, like, what the hell is going on over there? And they can't get on a budget together, and they can't get on immigration legislation together. One even offered to lend us the U.S. government to get our immigration in order. I mean, and I'm sure,
really?
yeah. That's how it's being received, and these are friends and business associates and clients and the like who are not from Cayman. But in a lot of instances, that is the way all of these changes are being, viewed and received. And like I said, that could have been avoided. We could have avoided this international embarrassment, because that's what it feels like for me. This international embarrassment by measuring twice, cutting once. Nobody is saying that we didn't need reform. At least that's not what I am saying. We needed reform.
I think that is just noted straight nationally across the board. Everyone, no one has said that we didn't need it. And I keep repeating it every time I highlight certain things, because the meaning or the purpose behind today's conversation to revisit the Section 27 caller is to say that what this is proposing is that anyone person who was born here in the islands before the 26th of March, 1977, right? They would, under the new rules, they are automatic. But it doesn't say, does it stop at them? Would they then be able to pass it on to their partner, their child, their children?
But again, these are the similar ambiguities, if you want to call them that, absurdities, if you want to call them that existed in the previous in the current.
So now we're only making them automatic, so they don't have to go through an application process, but we still not closing the gate, is what people are saying.
But that's the problem. When there are questions, Sabrina, like, well, am I privy to does this law apply to me? When the question is that simple, and the piece of legislation is not clear enough to say, okay, Sabrina, you fall under the old piece of legislation. No, Sabrina, you fall under the new piece of legislation. When it is not that clear, Sabrina, I think we have a problem. I think we have a problem, and it's a tad bit embarrassing. It's a tad bit embarrassing. I'm not sure. Like, what was the intention? What was the spirit of the law? What was intended by that piece of legislation? We can all sit here and speculate what it was, right? However, in the preamble of the bill, is it clear? It's not.
No.
It's not.
No.
And that's the purpose, or that should be the purpose of a preamble, to kind of to set out, what was intended by Parliament.
The objects and reasons, it's not clear.
Like you rightly said earlier, when you have these types of absurdities and ambiguities in the law, it leaves the gate wide open for challenges and for people to find loopholes, and we end up having to either pay out money or concede and agree that Sabrina and her 4.7 family members.
Mhm.
You know, we've so wronged them that we
Mhm.
either end up paying them out or we're found in breach of some piece of legislation. We just kind of throw our hands up in the air and say, there goes another one.
Mhm.
There goes another one. And I mean, this, I don't know, and I don't speak for the minister. I don't even know him, to be fair. But I don't think that this was the intent. I really don't think that this was the intent, Sabrina.
Mhm.
And it would be I would be hard pressed to hear him say that this, you know, to create this type of what feels chaotic
Mhm.
was the intention. But this is what is happening. It is really creating a lot of chaos. It is creating a lot of upset. It is creating a lot of discontent. A lot of people have been leaving the island. You know, maybe the reasons are not outright and clear that it is due to this law. But I have spoken to people who are like, this is too much. This is so confusing.
Mhm.
And if this is the case, we'll never move on. We'll never be able to move on to PR. So we're just going to go back home. Now, let me be clear. I don't have a problem with that either.
But
I don't have a problem.
Go
I
ahead.
don't have a problem with that either, with them wanting to go back home. But I do think that people deserve to know exactly where they're
Where they
standing,
stand.
ex-
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly what the case is, and only then can you make an informed decision.
Mhm.
But you can't just leave people in limbo and you know, just be like, okay, well. But the sad part about it is, and as much as you know, I think I heard one member of parliament say that it was almost absurd to think that because we were making changes to immigration that these jobs are going to up and go with them too. That's exactly what's happening, Sabrina.
You know, Carmen, I'm glad you opened that door. Because
That's exactly what's
it's
happening.
happening. It's happening, but nobody's talking about it. People are
Yeah.
leaving.
But what's happening is Sabrina works for Siobhan works for Sabrina and Co. Sabrina and Co. is really headquartered out of Channel Islands. So Sabrina, being from the UK, she's just going back home. She's just going back home. Sabrina's not taking a cut. Sabrina's not taking a pay cut. Sabrina's not none of those things, and Sabrina gets to keep her job. That's one more job off the Cayman job market. That's one
But
more.
it's
That's
still not
one less
creating an
person.
opening for a Caymanian
That's-
to fill the role because it's gone with
There
them.
you go.
It's
But
gone
there's
with
no
them.
requirement to do so.
Mhm.
There is no requirement to do so. And nobody questions over at BSP. Well, let me say business staff and the business staff and board.
Mhm.
Nobody questions why HR is being run from the moon.
Yeah.
Nobody questions that. Nobody questions why you know, billing has moved to Pakistan or
Mhm.
India or the Philippines.
But that's not creating any job opportunities for SEAM locals who have the expertise that is available.
But this is it. But what I'm saying is, they were one particular member said, you know, it would be absurd to suggest that these jobs were just going to pick up and go. Sabrina, they're picking up and going.
I
They're
know
picking
people
up
who are
and
in the
moving
remittance
operations.
services. I know who people are in the remittance services who are working also in some financial institutions, and they are saying people are tidying up, closing down their accounts, and they're going home. The remittance services, in some more than others, of course, based on where it is, they are down. And if you get those stats and they're honestly going to deliver those stats, that's some indication that exactly what you're saying, that they're leaving. Now, maybe some women are rejoicing for this, but it's not necessarily creating more jobs.
But let's be honest, Sabrina, if you can earn a Cayman type salary, live in your home country, which we know Cayman is among the highest
in the world
in terms of cost of living in the world, you're moving back home. Most people don't leave home because you know, they leave home for a better opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get the opportunity to earn, to have the same earning capacity, which will then afford you either a higher standard of living or the same standard of living that you were enjoying in the Cayman Islands, most people would go home.
Of course. Because they
Most
can do
people
that
would go
remotely
home.
now, and we see how easy it is.
But
Siobhan,
this
look at
is
what we're
it.
doing now. You could be in Timbuktu, and I could
But
be paying you as a co-host to do exactly what you're doing.
not only that, who is monitoring it? And nobody asks the question when Sabrina's permit is either cancelled or not renewed. Nobody says, what's happening with, well, why was this permit? Or, is this role now going to be filled by a Caymanian? Nobody questions down at
We're
BSP.
restructuring the organization. That position is no longer needed.
Nobody down at BSP questions, well, you're moving all of your billing operations off island. Are these roles, are you creating any roles for Caymanians or training roles for Caymanians? What's happening? Oh, no, we're moving it to China. Oh, no, we're moving it to India. Oh, no, we're moving it to the Philippines. This is not okay. And I do believe, and if I'm wrong, I stand corrected. This is a direct result of not just the immigration bill, the cost of doing business in Cayman, that I believe, I hope he forgives me for calling his name, Steve Manning, the CEO over at Cayman Finance, who said, they're killing the goose that laid the golden egg. They're killing the goose that laid the golden egg. And these businesses all businesses are in business with a view for profit. They're not in business to lose, nor are they in a business to be in business to be in the hole. They want to make money. And if they can get Sabrina to work in the Philippines for even a fraction,
they could go there.
That's what they're doing. They're moving these operations. They're moving these operations offshore. At the end of the day, their goal is to turn a profit. Their goal is not to boost the coffers of the Cayman Islands government. Their goal is to boost profits for their shareholders. And I think that we lose sight of that every time that CIG needs to increase revenue. We're going to hit financial services. They're killing it. They're killing the product. We're seeing a lot, like I said, a lot of these establishments are going back to having not being headquartered in Cayman. A lot of them already aren't, but they're just moving the operation out of Cayman. Nothing precludes them from running that entity, that Cayman Islands entity, from another jurisdiction. Nothing. Nothing. You understand? A second thing I wanted to touch on, if you would allow me. I noticed there was either a press release, forgive me if I am stating this correctly, that there was some consideration that they would so I guess kind of address and alleviate some of the cost of living, that government was entertaining the idea of reducing the cost on import duties on some foods, I believe.
Yes, I think the Minister Nicholas DaCosta was saying that they were looking at the tariff codes to try and eliminate, some of these codes. That was a part of a news headline, but I haven't looked into that one yet.
Okay, well, neither have I, but I just wanted to and maybe he's listening, somebody can ask him, maybe I'll ask him myself. I appreciate the sentiment. I really do, Sabrina. And I don't think that this government is, how do I word this nicely? This government for trying. They are trying. I do believe that they are. I think if we're fair in our assessment that they are, right? So simple things like reducing the cost on the import, the duties on certain foods, right? That's a great idea. We went through a similar exercise. Again, I stand corrected. I think this might have been under your tenure. It was something.
Yes. 2021 feminine products, elderly stuff, diapers.
I believe it was Chris Saunders at the time.
He was the Minister of Finance then, yes.
Correct, right? And those things were done and those were welcomed, right? The problem, Sabrina, who policed it to ensure that those cost-saving measures and that cost-saving mechanism was passed on to the consumer? And I'm not suggesting that it wasn't. I'm just saying, I don't recall, and as you know, I'm a supermarket auditor. I don't recall those costs being passed down the line.
Even though even though feminine hygiene products and baby stuff, some of these things were duty free.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. right? And so while I think that is a good first step, that is a good first step at trying to address the cost of living. I think that food accounts for a great deal of household expenses in Cayman. I say that as I stand here myself cutting up a whole pile of local beef. But
you and this blooming beef.
man, listen, I love it. I sound like my son. I love it. And so, I appreciate those measures that the government, that he is taking. But how can the public? What confidence can the public have that, first of all, that it's going to have a real effect? Number one, like let me blow CUC horn a little bit. They better pay me for this one, right? At least when CUC says we're going to reduce the cost of, I don't know what it reduces, but they're going to reduce the cost of something. They can tell you your fuel cost is going to drop by 15 cents. I think this was also under your tenure where I think during COVID, where the government agreed to either waive or reduce the fuel surcharge, the fuel duty on so CUC. Thus that cost was passed directly onto us. We saw it, Sabrina. It was tangible. We saw it, right? Again, those are tangible measurements. I mean, again, duties and stuff are one of, I stand corrected again, one of government's largest revenue streams.
Including those who have work permits as well. And PR
Correct.
fees.
The ones that they can't collect. Anyway.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
But yeah, and so again, I applaud the government. I really do applaud the government. I don't want to say that their efforts are going unnoticed. I would certainly be a hypocrite if I said that, right? However, again, the public is very skeptical at this point. If they're truly listening and their ears are to the ground, I think the public is losing a lot of confidence. The public is becoming disenfranchised. We were disenfranchised for quite some time, and we're becoming more hopeless is the word. I talk to people. I talk to people on a regular basis. I talk to people who, just trying to live on this $12.50 a month pension and saying, I don't have health insurance. And so I just want to put it out
it's
there.
It's funny that you mentioned the health insurance because I got a message on WhatsApp that says that's what Mr. Belika was talking about. The PR fees that you called in. It says DFA is surely going to have to get lots of applications because some of those people getting PR has nothing, zero in the name. And what government needs to do is check those PR applications that are housekeepers, gardeners, etc., and got the PR with no house, no money in the bank, etc. And there was another message that I want to make sure Mr. Belika hears. Tell Mr. Belika that if we keep giving away our birthright to everyone, that cannot pay for them for their PR. So let them go. So I'm making sure I cover all of the messages.
No, let them go. You can either afford to eat at this restaurant or you can't. You either can afford to or you can't. And Cayman can no longer continue to be the land of milk and honey for everyone except Caymanians. It can no longer be. The status quo can no longer remain, Sabrina. Caymanians we're leaving the country to go take up residence in somebody else's country.
I said it, and I have a number of friends who are actually scouting out other jurisdictions because they're saying, and you're in an area that you can see and hear it yourself.
Aren't I? You understand? And so, like I said, I do hope that, if he's not listening, that maybe come, I will bend his ear and tell him, like we're in bad shape, Sabrina. We're in bad shape as a country. And yes, they're a young government. Yes, they're, not even 1 year in, but these are very real problems. These are very real problems. And yes, I want to give them time. And yes, I want to give them, the opportunity. And did these problems exist before they were elected, before some of them were born, before some of them were born, but they chose to run for public office. They were elected. And all of them, if I remember correctly, campaigned, especially on immigration reform.
Yes.
Okay? All of them campaigned on immigration reform. And immigration reform should not make the lives of Caymanians more difficult. It should not. It should not make the lives of Caymanians more difficult. We shouldn't be put out of jobs because, well, we can pack up shop and go. We can pack up shop and go. Right? We can't continue to make it so difficult. And I'm not advocating for the businesses because you know how I feel. You come from somewhere, baby. You come from somewhere. But again, bear in mind that the civil service, if I recall correctly, I think that they're on a hiring moratorium, aren't they? On a hiring freeze, sorry.
Not based on the availabilities and the openings that are popping up.
Oh, my bad. There you go. Thank you for correcting me.
I'm not aware. I think that was held off until the end of the year. Maybe it's open as of January 1st. I don't know. I don't know. I
don't know either. I thought I heard that government was on a hiring.
It was, but I think it's no longer. I stand to be corrected. Okay. We can double check that.
So they didn't announce that. But what I'm saying is CIG also needs to recognize that they can't hire everybody. They can't hire everybody. And the more that they continue to create legislation that is harmful, particularly to financial services, again, I'm not suggesting that we don't need reform. But when these companies have other options, it's usually the Caymanian that ends up paying the price. Because Sabrina, who's coming from Tuvalu, can go back to Tuvalu and get her work done. And Sabrina is going to be earning USD or KYD, a KYD equivalent salary in Tuvalu. That not helping Foster's, it not helping Kirk's, it not helping CUC, it not helping CIG, it not helping DVDL, it not helping them pay that $600 car license or license fee, it not helping none of that. It really isn't. And again, measure twice, cut once.
See, Live Happy says the government should not put the onus on business to create jobs for Caymanians. We can also create jobs. That's a great opportunity for us to create business in our country. We are not helpless. And Denver is saying, hope you're not cutting up that beef. Oh, Lord, as fast as you talk.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You can make him know I got one piece of skirt up here.
Yeah, but that is that comment. Thanks, Live Happy, for that as well. And true talk, Jim is saying true talk, that you're saying the truth there, my love. But it's 6:58 and it's been a minute. We haven't heard from you. It's always good to hear you. And that's where you, boy, you come, you call, and you throw it down. I be
listening. I be trying to give somebody else a turn.
Yeah. But no, appreciate it.
Today I couldn't make Mr. Bleeker get away with that today. I saw her.
Aye. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you joining in on the conversation, my love. Take care. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. There we have it. We come to another end of today's episode, another Sabrina Speaks right here on cmrtv.com. And I am hoping that some of the examples that were given today would actually reach the ears and look at it from a different perspective, because are we really doing what we say it was intended to do? And there's nothing wrong with making a mistake, owning up. But now that this is public discussion, time for us to actually debate this bill. That's exactly what we're doing here. It has been a pleasure bringing you another episode, hoping that you would have some takeaways from this, and so that we can continue talking about this immigration reform. And I hope that we are able to continue to do this with wisdom and with courage as well, and ask the right questions. And it's at the point where we have to demand clarity, and let us ensure that, Caymanian identity definitely remains rooted in our connections and our contributions in our community, and not just paperwork. In this case, not carte blanche either. So thank you for joining me today. Please have a good evening. Have a wonderful, be careful when you're out on the streets. Thank you, Jimbo and Miss Dorothy. Thank you very much for that as well. Until tomorrow, stay safe. God bless. Love you lots. Good night.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.